Why does your family get angry when you heal? They broke you before you knew who you were. How to heal from family trauma. Welcome back, everyone. This is LanceScurvX, relaxing in my studio, anticipating another conversation on human nature. Because human nature never ceases to amaze me. And today, I want to speak about families, toxic, dysfunctional families, which every family, I'm not going to say every single family is massively dysfunctional, but all families have a touch of dysfunction. It could be a touch that's not traumatic, doesn't have to be super toxic, but they're little things that we need to get over. And there's some families that, oh my God, they stink out the joint. And it makes you wonder how you got through it. And in many cases, when you grow up in a very toxic, dysfunctional situation, it's something that you carry for the rest of your life. Even though you may have physically moved away, you still have feelings about it. And I have a few points that I want to talk about. I just want to say this one thing, that many of us bury our feelings and our trauma that came from different levels of dysfunction in our family and different levels of toxicity. See, when we're a child, that's when our identity is the most pliable because of the people around us. And we don't know the world. We have certain perceptions, but we're basically born with a clean, fresh slate. And I say basically because there's some people out here, I don't know, they're coming to this world. Some of them come into the world evil, some of them come nice, but pretty much it's a clean slate. But that being said, we get affected by the people around us because they have us first and they flavor how we see the world around us. And long after we're out of that situation, if it's something bad, or away from it physically, we're still affected by it in our mind, right? And like a tree that has many branches, let's just say the tree that you were had one little branch, you're a child, you have the child branch. But then as you get older, you get more branches on your tree, you're a student, you date people, you get married, you have a family, you're in business or you're working. So there are more branches on your tree as you get older. And oftentimes it's easy to neglect, is that a proper way of saying it? Or to overlook that branch that represented you at childhood. This is what I'm seeing. I'm not a person who studied. I studied my mother's college books back when I was like 10 years old and learned a lot when she had to take a psychology course. I love those books. But anyway, yeah, we never forget it. It still affects us. We still have the emotions, the reactions. And just like I was telling someone a little while ago, your proximity to every family member as far as your chronological age never changes. Your age might change, but your positioning is exact, like a satellite around the planet Earth or a planet around the sun. Whatever time you were born and whatever time that family member was born, it's the same exact time down to the microsecond. So why am I saying this? Is this a science lesson or what? Not necessarily, meaning that you still feel like a child around older siblings. And I don't mean all the way, but you have those buttons to push that somebody in the street wouldn't be able to push because they don't know you. But they have a knowledge of you and a positioning, not just because of age, but because how you were made to feel as a child. And you get older and still certain things you have to put your foot down. Or some people let it ride for the good, the bad, and the ugly. But we have to understand there's so many lessons to learn about ourselves, our own strength. Sometimes we're getting better, sometimes we get worse. but we bear the weight until we deal with it. And it's almost like coming home and maybe a family member had guests over and the place is sloppy and they left it that way. And you're angry. You're like, hey, they got to clean this up. But guess what? They may not be back for a few days and you end up having to clean it up. For you in your own personal life, you have to oftentimes clean up the mess that other people, meaning your family and maybe some others, left. The imprint. You have to deal with that. So you do have to confront them. Maybe not in an angry way, but get your thoughts together and clean house for your peace of mind while you have the chance. So this is the reason why I like to talk about human nature and things of this sort. And I've always spoken about dysfunctional families, but it's just a matter of speaking about them from a different angle, because there's no two sets of dysfunctional families alike. They're all different. You may feel that your situation is normal, and then you realize it's abnormal because you played a comparison game when you're a child and you go over to somebody else's house and say, oh, his mother or father or her mother or father don't scream at each other, or their house is neat. You know, there's order here. It's neatness. So it's hard going through life coming up as a child when you have certain things at home in a major traumatic way that you have to deal with. And kudos to all of you who have dealt with it, healed from it, but healing. Do you ever really heal all the way? There's always some area in our lives that we have to heal from. So it's best to acknowledge it, look it in the eye, and take our time. You have yourself to yourself for the rest of your life, right? So why not take time? It's like when you have a room to clean and it's like, oh my God, this room is trashed. There's stuff everywhere. Take one section of the room, break it down in half, break it down in quarters, break it down in eighths, and say, just this little corner, I'm gonna start it out. And guess what? Once you start it out, the rest seems a lot easier. But you were overwhelmed because you went in wide-eyed and saw the whole mess that it was. And remember, you don't have to take responsibility for toxicity that has been dumped on you. It's not yours. You had to deal with it. You grew up around it. It may have been normal for you for a while, but you don't have to continue that so-called tainted legacy. It's theirs. They didn't deal with it. It's not for you to deal with. Anyway, first point I want to make, when your first lessons about love were actually lessons about survival, many people never realize that the family they grew up in became the blueprint for every relationship they would later have. It's so true. As children, we don't have the ability to judge whether our environment is healthy or unhealthy. We simply adapt because survival demands it. If criticism was constant, we normalize criticism. If manipulation was common, we mistake manipulation for concern. If love was conditional, we grow into adults believing we must earn the right to be loved. The tragedy is that this programming quietly follows us into adulthood. We wonder why we tolerate disrespect, why we attract controlling people, or why we feel guilty for saying no. The answer often isn't because we are weak. It's because our emotional foundation was built inside an environment that trained us to survive instead of teaching us how to thrive. Healing begins when we stop blaming ourselves and start recognizing where those unhealthy patterns first took root. And it's tough to think back to childhood incidents, major and minor. And again, this depends on the situation of the actual person. I've seen some true success stories come out of some very dysfunctional situations. And when I say success stories, I don't mean that, they have a lot of money. Yes, I've seen situations like that. But I've also seen situations where a person may not have had lots of money, but I consider them a success because they healed themselves. You see? So we have people sometimes, and not always, there are some happy people who have money, right? But I've seen people who have come out of dysfunctional situations and they've equated money with a success, but really they were getting back at the situation they came from, but didn't truly heal from it. We have a lot of those. I've been, how could I say it? I don't want to say attacked, but I've had people in somewhat of an inner circle who actually had money, life changing money that the regular person working hourly would love to have. And it doesn't mean that it was millions and millions and millions, but it was up there. But they worked hard for what they got. But I noticed that as time went on, and I would always speak appreciation for my parents and my upbringing, they had a certain look on their face. I didn't notice it at first, but I kept catching the pattern. And I said to myself, seems like they got an issue with that, or they might fall silent, or they might change the topic. And then after a time, I realized the dysfunctional situation that they were trying to cover with the appearance of outward monetary success, that I had something that money couldn't buy. And that bothered them for some reason. And there were other issues to that connection, but that was basically it. That here I am, a regular working Joe, who I do have greatness inside of me. We all do. But it's not a thing to develop to get back at a scar. No. I'm relaxed and comfortable with who I am. I'm confident. My parents made me that way. And since I mentioned a scar, see, sometimes a scar can be a badge of honor if you healed from it, but you still see the mark. Like I told a woman many years ago who I had the pleasure of spending time with, we'll just say it that way. And she was so much into covering her stomach, and I spoke about this story before. She thought it was ugly, the stretch marks that she had. And I told her, no, you brought life into this world. You enhanced this world. Look how you've raised your children. It's a plus. That's a beautiful thing. It truly is. So we had a talk. The festivities paused for a while because I really wanted her to see that she was truly beautiful in every area of her being and also her physical body. And I'm glad that it hit home, the little talk that we had. But we have to understand how important it is to look back on our childhood. You see, you ever make a bed up and you put the cover on top, the final one. You walk across the room and you look back, if you see a wrinkle or maybe the covers are a little more to the left or to the right, where it's touching the ground on one side and up higher on the other, you go back and you straighten it out. Well, this is the same thing that I'm suggesting in your meditation. See, we sit here and meditate and pray for more money, pray for a bigger house, pray for better finances. Fine, especially if you're willing to work for it. But most of us don't pray back on straightening out the things that we misunderstood or we absorbed and took as normalcy, which was a foundation that follows us for the rest of our lives in our relationships, how we react to things. It all comes back from childhood. So this is why if you're ever interested in getting with anybody, try to find out about their childhood. That will tell you a lot more about them than they can even consciously tell you, if you're wise enough. And again, it's not an audit or a survey or an interview, but in the way it is, especially if you're looking to double down and commit to this person, because their rhythms will blend and become yours. You see? So it is what it is. But our childhood is definitely our foundation that we carry for the rest of our lives. The moment you wake up, the family system feels threatened. Now, I'm not talking about waking up in the morning time. I'm talking about the minute you wake up to the fact that you live with a family that's not operating in a healthy way. You see, I've seen dogs in the street that have gotten hit by a vehicle or got injured. Maybe I didn't see it get hit, but I know that they got injured somehow. Why? Because they're walking on a crooked leg. And they've learned to walk on that crooked leg because out in the street, if it's a stray dog, he didn't have anybody to care for him, to put the leg in a cast. So the leg heals up whichever way it heals up, but it's not going to be perfect the way it was before. So once it heals up, or before, you see the dog walking on 3 legs and limping. And as that leg heals up whichever way the bone's set, that dog will put more pressure on that leg and they'll learn to walk on that leg in a very crooked way. So the crooked way of walking with the bone that was set the wrong way became normal for the dog. After a while, the dog forgot about it, but you can see that. Well, it's the same thing when you grow up in a dysfunctional family. You didn't get your bone broken, but it was formed in a crooked way because that's the system you grew up in. And so now it's very hard to reset it when you don't know what it should be. But every dysfunctional family develops an unspoken balance. Everyone plays a role, and everyone is expected to stay in that role. The moment one person begins healing, the entire system becomes uncomfortable because the old rules no longer work. Suddenly, the person who once remained silent starts speaking up. The one who accepted disrespect now establishes boundaries. The one who constantly sought approval no longer needs it. That's why your healing often creates resistance. Your growth exposes what others have chosen to ignore. Without saying a word, your peace becomes evidence that another way of living is possible. And a lot of them don't want to accept that. Instead of celebrating your freedom, those invested in dysfunction may see it as rejection because your transformation shines a light on everything they've refused to confront within themselves. Ain't that something? Your healing is threatening to them. They gave up on trying to see beyond. And it's true. They know it. And this also holds true when you marry into a dysfunctional family. You don't know what the unspoken rules are. And you come with a better sense of balance and normalcy, and you're not broken in the way that the members of that family are broken in. So you go on hurting feelings with the best intentions. Well, why is this way? And don't you speak about this? Or, well, let's talk about this. This can't happen this way. Why are you all so quiet? Not that you are aggressive when you marry into a family like that or date somebody who comes from that. See? So that person you're dating or married into, they may catch more flack because you're not playing by the rules. But how would you? Because you don't know. And when you start to really identify things, look for that family, members of that family, to despise you because you're a new ingredient into their soup, their DNA, their legacy, their lineage. You messed it up because you're shining light on a mess. And that's how that works, because you woke up. When you're in it and you wake up, you will be the outcast. They will talk about you blame you for stuff that happened years ago, but you're like, wait a second, that happened 2 years before I was born, or that happened when I was 7 years old. How are you blaming me and dragging me into this? They will have a way of collectively rewriting history. And anyone who doesn't adhere to that lie of that fabricated history, family history, they'll be on the outskirts too. And you'll always have that one, from what I noticed, that will advocate with you. They may not say anything, but you'll have a special relationship with that one. You might be the outcast for speaking up or healing, but this one who's partially in it, they'll whisper to you. They'll talk to you. They'll let you know what's going on, but they'll let you know that they realize how dysfunctional their family is with you, and they will let you know that you're right, but they'll never say it in front of the rest of them. Isn't that something? When one person shifts, it makes everybody uncomfortable, oftentimes before they even realize it. And for a while, it's an unspoken agreement with the other family members. And then they will collectively find ways to despise you or come against you simply because let's just make something up. And this is a real situation that I've observed. Certain family members, they love their father. Well, I mean, everybody should love their father. But that father had touched some of the family, the children, half of them, when they were younger. And the other half, they didn't get touched. And I've found that the ones who got touched, they were defending the father more than the ones who didn't get violated, who were trying to stand up for them, only just to keep the illusion intact that what happened didn't happen, or they try so hard to minimize it. See, I like to go into specific examples because it's going to touch somebody who has gone through those dynamics. It's crazy what I've seen. I've seen uncles come around their brother, the father, the husband of the family. And that uncle, and this is a specific situation that I've seen with my own eyes, that uncle was trying to look up the dress of his niece in front of his brother, who is the father of that girl. I saw this. And they thought that I wasn't looking, but it was in the same living room and the steps went up and he mumbled something under his breath, but she looking good. She sure putting on some good weight. And he laughed, the uncle. And the father laughed. The father laughed because he had ventured where the uncle was looking at. I'm trying to keep it decent, right? Because I know speaking about these things can upset people because it can bring back bad memories. And the mother was literally a religious fanatic. And if they listen to me, whoever, it's been many decades, they'll know that I'm talking about them, but I'm not saying any names. And I have to talk about this stuff. She was in church every Sunday, every Wednesday, every Friday, and every Saturday. And if anything was needed in the church, she was there. She took pages out of the Bible. I believe she clipped out every page of the Bible and taped it to her wall, from the molding of the floor up to the molding to the top of the ceiling, and some parts of the ceiling above her bed where her pillow was. And she was euphoric. I don't think Prozac was out then, but it looked like she popped 10 Prozacs every time I saw her. She's just smiling in the goodness of the Lord. And she knew what her husband did. She didn't allow him to sleep in the bed with her, but other than that, she ignored it. And she buried herself in religion. And this is why many dysfunctional families are sometimes and oftentimes, from what I'm seeing, I'm not saying everybody, but they're some of the most religious people you ever want to see, and the secrets buried beneath all of that is something that the Lord has to take care of. Even if it's active, even if that father is getting about the bed at night and leaving the wife in the bed and going to another room where their child is to manipulate and touch, fondle, and do whatever it is that he wants to do. And that mother knows what he's doing and refuses to stop it, deal with it, and comfort her children. And she'll choose that man, the illusion of that man that she wants to paint, that false illusion when she first met him. And they'll often have pictures on the wall of the happy times. So she pretends it's a happy time, knowing that she married a damn demon. How about that? This is something I've seen with my own two eyes, and the whole family was affected. Half were touched, and the other half were affected by it to the point where, behind closed doors, it was just one or two that had a shot, but even they bared the weight of it as they got older. I don't think none of them came out unaffected, and there was no attempts to heal. And of course, you're born into something, so what do you think? So they stayed in line. And the one that woke up, she had to get herself away, far from the situation. They accused her of being cold when the father passed away. People who didn't know. So sometimes when you see a situation a certain way, you can't assess it. I don't want to say judge, because judging is when you really don't know. But if you can assess it because you know, then you have to agree if their reaction to a person passing away or some mishap happening and they seem to be cold, well, right? So there's so many angles of how we can see this. So many ways. And remember, like we always say a family was perfect. There's no perfect situation, but say the situation was perfect. If you have 10 kids, you have 10 different stories of their childhood. Of course, there's going to be overlap. You're living in the same house, you have the same parents. You go to the beach or you go to the amusement park, you're going to have that memory the same way. But how you react and deal with it, depending on your personality makeup, your strength, your knowledge, your development, because unless you have 10 kids at one time, they're all going to come up in different years, have different experiences, and they're going to receive it different. So that's another factor. When it's dysfunctional, those differences can be major, because I've seen people fight over one brother or sister bringing up the fact that there was a molestation going on in the household, and another person turned around and flipped out crying, almost having a nervous breakdown, because they didn't want to see that. They didn't want to believe that. It ruined the picture that they told themselves of their childhood. You see what I mean? That's crucial. The next point I want to talk about is jealousy isn't always about success. Sometimes, and oftentimes, it's about your peace. People often assume jealousy revolves around money, possessions, or status. In reality, one of the most powerful forms of envy is directed towards someone who has found genuine inner peace. A person trapped in emotional chaos can become deeply unsettled when they see someone who no longer reacts, argues, or seeks approval. Your calm becomes something they can't purchase or manipulate. That's why some people become even more hostile after you've healed. They aren't simply reacting to your success. They're reacting to your freedom. They recognize that the emotional hooks that once controlled you no longer work. When someone loses the ability to control your emotions, they often become frustrated because they've also lost access to your energy. And that's something that I really, really realized in the last few years, that when you have peace and peace of mind, and not only that, but a life and lifestyle structure that supports that. See, I'm not running from the law. I'm not overwhelmed with debt. I don't have uncertain thoughts about how I'm going to make it in the future. I'm not a millionaire. And even if I was, just simply being a millionaire is not going to bring me happiness. If I had turmoil in my past, trauma that was not dealt with, I would have to work on that to get peace. But remember, you're listening to this thus far, and it's not unsettling you because you're probably saying to yourself, if you haven't, right? I mean, you could be very advanced in your healing and be further along than me or someone else. But if you're facing it and you're listening to this over some celebrity gossip, foolishness, whatever, if you're taking a few notes, because I've been around the block, I got a little bit of age on me, I have no problem sharing whatever amount of accrued wisdom that I have. I'm not here to say I have more than you or less than you, but whatever I have, I'm here to share it. And that's why I have these types of discussions. It's not about one-man upmanship or trying to make myself look brilliant, but I've witnessed a lot and I've been through a lot. So I have no problem sharing. I'm just glad that you're here to listen to the little bit that I have to share. And if you can make use of it and heal up, get better, just like people have helped me with certain things in my life that I had to see that maybe I didn't see. So that's the importance of it, right? But we don't have the village mentality anymore. We don't have the communal way, the original African way. We don't have it. Hell, there are a lot of Africans who don't have the original African way. It's an ideal that we need to get back to. And if we did, and we thought of it that way, we'd have a more connected way of life. The Western way of life, every man for himself, I got mine, you got to get yours. That's not even good for either side. That if you accrued all of the wealth and all of the gadgets and trinkets and baubles and rubies that you wanted, being cut off of that mentality is no good for you either, right? So I like to do it this way. And my tribe is spread across the globe. It doesn't mean that I have many people around me. No, I don't. I have lots of enemies around me, if the truth be told. But I have the maximum amount of peace of mind that I've ever had in my lifetime because I know how to commandeer my energy. And I've had to become wise to know how to move amongst snakes and still have a good life. And a good life, again, doesn't mean just money. That being said, the next point I want to say and speak on, spiritual warfare. Spiritual warfare often looks like emotional exhaustion. And this one's deep, y'all. Pay attention. Many people think spiritual warfare always appears in dramatic or mysterious ways. Oftentimes, it shows up through constant discouragement, confusion, fear, self-doubt, and emotional depletion. When you're surrounded by negativity day after day, your spirit becomes exhausted, even if your body remains physically healthy. Healing requires protecting your inner life just as carefully as you protect your physical health. Every conversation, relationship, environment either strengthens your spirit or slowly drains it. That's why choosing peace isn't weakness. It's one of the strongest spiritual decisions you can make because you're refusing to feed the forces that thrive on conflict, confusion, and emotional chaos. Y'all keep your asses on the other side of that wall. I have physical walls, mental walls, emotional walls, and it doesn't mean that I'm trapped. I'm free. Because people can sometimes appeal to you, and you'll say, oh, that person's peaceful. They're full of wisdom. They're all about it. But it's only a mask to hide a narcissistic mindset and way of doing things. You hang around them for a while. If they can use you for something, they'll do it. And when they don't need you anymore, they're going to give you their ass to kiss. So the vetting process with me is exhausting, but I can pretty much tell now. Can truthfully say I've been through a lot more than I've been through before, and I'm the master of my universe. But understand, your body can be strong, but your spirit can be broken. And really, that's what they want. Those who have these feelings towards you, it doesn't mean they have to be doing some juju or some hocus pocus on you, because a lot of folks think it's that. But you collectively get around people, you average out with their spirit. This is what people don't understand. And if it's your family, oh my God, you gotta, it's almost like, how can I put it? I remember one time we had some fish, we had some chicken, and a whole lot. We had guests come over and eat a lot of it, but very little was left. So I had one of those plastic containers, and I took the fish and put it in the container, and I put the chicken, the leftovers, and put it in the same container. I went to get a piece of chicken the next day. The chicken smelled and tasted like fish because it was close to it in close proximity. And that was a lesson right there. And I remember thinking about that. I said, yeah, the energy of people average out with you and rub off on you. Whatever weight they have in their heart, from you having peace of mind and they're living in chaos and confusion and uncertainty, if they were just to sit next to you, you pick up on it. So you have to be able to repel these entities, especially when they purposely lean on you to weigh you down. Like in a boxing match, you have two boxers, one's clinching the other one to stop him from throwing punches temporarily, maybe because he got hit real hard and he's trying to recover. Well, he'll clinch you, but he'll lay his weight on you if he's a little bigger than you to weigh you down. So you have to be shrewd enough not to hold him up, and you buckle under the weight purposely to save your energy. You have to know how to counterpunch. You have to know when to punch. You have to know when to throw the hard punches and the soft ones, and when to backpedal. It's warfare. It's no different. And it's warfare with your energy, your essence, your soul, your everything you are. So when you go to bed at night and when you wake up in the morning, take inventory on how you feel. If you feel extremely drained and it's not something physical, maybe you had a tough day at work with mental challenges, figuring things out, well, I can understand that. But if you had a quiet, peaceful time and you feel exhausted that way emotionally, maybe it's something that you're thinking about. Maybe you didn't get around people, but it's something that you're thinking about, right? Well, all of those factors will make it where you will feel drained. When you see a car stranded on the side of the road where it can't move, it's not just one way. It's not just that it ran out of gas. Maybe the engine's shot. Maybe the transmission doesn't work. You understand there's so many ways for it to not work. Maybe the battery's dead. So with us as human beings, with so many components to our makeup more than the physical, there's so many ways for us to get to that point of exhaustion and confusion, and it spills over. It could be a spiritual draining, an emotional draining, a mental draining. But when you're completely drained in that one way, you're going to put weight on the other parts of your existence, of your being, right? So that's how that works. There's a lot of physical lessons that can teach us things in the spiritual and vice versa, right? Next, the black sheep is often the truth teller. Oh, how right that is. The person labeled as the difficult one is frequently the individual who simply refuses to continue pretending everything is fine. Every dysfunctional family needs someone to blame, because assigning blame keeps everyone from examining the deeper issues. The black sheep becomes the convenient target while the real problems remain untouched. When you understand this, you stop carrying labels that never belong to you. You realize your willingness to ask difficult questions wasn't rebellion, it was courage. You weren't destroying the family, you were exposing patterns that had been quietly destroying the family for years. If anything, you're doing a good job by asking the questions, but of course you're going to become the enemy, and you're going to be the scapegoat, and things that have no relation to you will be pinned on you constantly. You will be the emotional garbage can for everything that transpires that they want to fabricate to keep you being the problem, so they're not forced to look within themselves. And that's the honest to the creator truth. Maybe you've noticed it, maybe you haven't. And one thing you don't want to do is go to them and try to appeal on the fabricated issue, usually from a twisted perception that they pin on you, because that's not the issue. They wanna just come against you anyway, right? I've had groups of people ruled, influenced, and controlled by an individual or two. And it was this individual's desire to demonize me, to make everyone around me not talk to me, not deal with me, and to not be included. Once I realized what it was, I backed up. You don't have to worry about me trying to push myself upon you. I'm ghost because the way I was raised, I spend a lot of time with myself, of course, my parents, and I have friends, but I enjoy my own company. And that pisses people off who want to demonize you and isolate you. You can't isolate me. I am a creative individual and a creator. You're only leaving me with enough time to not be interrupted to create. I mean, that's my personal thing. So people, well, don't tell them we're going to take a trip over here and don't let them know. Good. Now, what I'm doing, you'll never know, right? Because just like now, I'm in my studio. I got the computer, my microphone here, everything. I had a lot of equipment all over, depending on what I need to do, right? Back in the day, from the early 70s, I can say the late 60s, I had a room, my TV, my record player, cassette player. I'm playing music, right? I'm drawing my pictures, doing my homework. It's the same thing that I've been doing that I'm doing now. When you really look at it, it's just different equipment. So me zoning out to some music and I'm creating a graphic image or writing an article or whatever, I'm in my zone. So, and I'm just saying this for me, right? I was doing this from like 7, 8 years old. Let's just say 10 years old, right? 10 years old, that was what? 1973. Let's just round it off and say 1970, right? 70 coming to 80, 90, 2000, that's 30 years. I've been like this for like 56 years out of my 63 years. And it's really more than that. So that's a relationship that I have with myself that cannot be broken. I cannot be isolated. And I suggest to you, whoever you may be, you may already have something that you do that you're into. This is why this comes so natural to me, right? That find something that you love to do that takes you away from the BS around you. I can lock myself in a room and draw, play the music. I don't have to lock myself in a room where I live. What I'm saying is that, you just have a way of doing things. The outside world is not going to touch me or even get into my head, even as I speak this. So you have to find ways of becoming bulletproof to the BS that people try to touch you with. And when they can't touch you with their toxicity, it frustrates them so much. And keep your time limited with those who try to pin stuff on you, right? Wow, I can go more on that. Look, I might have to go do a separate thing on that, on those techniques, because it works for me really good. The other point I want to talk about, forgiveness doesn't require access. One of the greatest misunderstandings surrounding forgiveness is the belief that forgiving someone automatically requires allowing them back in your life. Genuine forgiveness frees your own heart from bitterness, but it doesn't erase wisdom. It doesn't require ignoring repeated patterns of manipulation or pretending nothing happened. Healthy forgiveness, I gotta say it again, healthy forgiveness acknowledges the past while making wiser decisions about the future. You can sincerely wish someone well while also recognizing that your peace depends on loving them from a safe, emotional distance. Don't give them a chance to repeat the pattern because they may take your forgiveness as weakness, right? So if you say you forgive them, you also got to let them know that what happened before will not happen again. And I will protect my peace. Let them know that and keep them over there somewhere. Matter of fact, once they screw you over once, now I'm not telling you to be against any family member, but once they do it, they're going to do it again if you let them get so close to you. Let them realize they lost your energy, your precious life force and energy. That there are so many people out here, and I want to say this, and it's not really with this point, but there's so many people that don't want you to have the life force that you have. The generator, that divine generator of energy that you have, that's propelling you to your goals. That's helping to fuel your happiness and your peace, no matter where you find yourself in life. If you have a spouse, if you don't have a spouse, if you have a friend with benefits, I had to throw that one in there to be funny, whatever it may be, or you have nobody else except your battery-operated boyfriend or that jar of Vaseline, whatever it may be. If you're happy with the life force that you have at that particular point, and you're saving yourself from the confusion that will drain you. It's unnecessary. I don't need it. Keep your chaos to yourself. The more time I spend with myself and those in my true spiritual, mental, and emotional inner circle, the better off I am. Situations either add to you or they take away. There is no neutrality. Neutrality is negativity, because if neutrality can't make up its mind to be positive, it's negative. It's taking up space. People come around, oh, I'm neutral. No, you're not. You just don't want to stand for anything. And if you can't stand for positivity and truth, you're negative. If you don't get anything from this, understand that that's the way it is. That's the truth. And that's one thing I'm not going to back up from. And there are vast techniques out here to maintaining your peace and maintaining control over your life. I don't know everything, but what I've learned works. And what I'm sharing with you works. And I've spoken about this before. I've done whole podcasts on this, but I just want to mention it again because I can't have this particular expression and offering without speaking about boundaries. From the aspect of why boundaries make controlling people angry. Healthy people appreciate clarity because boundaries create mutual respect. Controlling people often view boundaries as personal attacks because limits prevent them from operating the way they always have. What a sweet feeling. The moment you stop explaining yourself, defending every decision, or responding to every criticism, they begin losing the influence they once enjoyed. Yes, I said it just like that. They begin losing the influence they once enjoyed. You gave them access. That's why your boundaries reveal more about other people than they do about you. Those who truly care for you will adjust. Those who only benefited from unlimited access will often become angry because your growth has interrupted their control. Their control into your personal life, their control into your finances, always wanting to borrow money, always wanting to hang around where they can get a freebie. Their control to know the inner workings of your life, to find out the juicy gossip if you have some issues that are going on within your marriage, within your family. See? And family. Boundaries for family. Yes. Because most of the time, I hate to say it this way, and I'm not against, look, I love to see a healthy family structure. But you know what? Most family that I'm finding out in this day of social media and people abandoning that union that should be there, that love and respect and the connectedness, you're only DNA sharers. You share the same DNA. That's it. You may share memories from childhood growing up, dysfunctional or not. But if you grow up into a healthy family unit, you're more than DNA sharers. Just like some women say, well, I didn't know the father of my daughter or my son. He was just a sperm donor. He didn't take care of his child. Well, for those people who just never took interest in you blamed you for stuff, brought you into drama, but you came from the same womb or have the same father, then you're just DNA sharers. And you shouldn't take it any more personal because that's all it is. Stop romanticizing these people who have the same last name, same DNA, same parents or parent. We romanticize about it while they just screw us over. And again, this is not for everybody. We do have good siblings out here. Trust and believe. That's the way it is. Unbelievable, but believable. You were never responsible for fixing everyone. Don't be the fixer in the family. What an impossible. That's like you not having knowledge of construction, but you're summoned to the job site of a huge apartment building and you got leaky pipes, walls crumbling, lights not working. Wait a second, it's just too much. You walked into this building at birth and you're supposed to be the one to fix it? You have your own development to deal with. You are never responsible for fixing everyone. Many people raised in dysfunctional homes become emotional caretakers long before adulthood. How convenient. They learn to manage everyone else's feelings while neglecting their own. Over time, they begin believing it's their responsibility to rescue everyone around them, even at the expense of their own mental health. How sad. Healing teaches a different lesson. Compassion doesn't require self-sacrifice without limits. You can care deeply about others while recognizing that every adult remains responsible for confronting their own wounds, or rather, their own demons. Carrying someone else's emotional burden forever isn't love. It's exhaustion disguised as loyalty. And we're talking about carrying everyone else's feelings as a child. But how about the mothers and the fathers who leave a young child to take care of the rest of the children? You 12 years old, 11 years old, 10 years old, and you got to look after a 5 and 4-year-old? Even if your mother runs out to the store, that's not your responsibility. You're a child. Things have to be taken care of. Even the parents or mother or father who mess up the child by using their name for credit and running the child's name and credit in the ground, and by the time they get a chance to come into adulthood, they realize that you were used for the cable bill, the cell bill, whatever. You ordered stuff and didn't pay for it. Now you messed up and you got to pay for that? Huh? I don't see any situation where that is acceptable. If it's life or death, well, maybe I don't know about it. Maybe you have to do whatever you have to do. But broken people will break you. You get around broken people, they will break you if you allow them. Like Drago in Rocky, what was that? Rocky 4. I must break you. Some of these family members, they look at you like a clean, fresh slate, and it's almost like they're determined to break you in some way so you can fit into the rest of the hooligans in the dysfunctional family that you were born into. And I'm not negative against family. I'm just speaking about those shapeshifters who act normal, who act like everything is okay, but it's not. And they're not okay until they destroy you, discourage you. You have dreams and aspirations, and they're trying to break you or make you carry the burden of what they should have carried, where they're not in debt emotionally in any way. They've healed themselves. And if you have any kind of trauma, you don't want to be like them. You want to take care of it. Even if it was given to you, separate yourself and heal yourself and remain healed. Like right now for me, I know the deal about every entity that has been around me in my life. So I know the proximity from which to keep them. I know how to mentally adjust and keep it a certain way. And I'm good. And I'm not going to allow myself to be touched anymore. Some people go their whole lives and they never get to that point. They're bitter about something, some kind of injustice, whatever. That means the situation that you're bitter about, it won. Because if you don't face it, clean it out, deal with it, and heal, it's going to always be a monkey on your back. And I've seen people go entire lifetimes not healing themselves. I remember there was a person who was around me, and Kevin Samuels, if you know who he is, he's the guy that speaks about relationships, but he doesn't cut any slack on how things should be. And so this woman, when he passed away, she's, oh, good. I'm glad he's dead. And I had to think about that. Why would you be glad that somebody died? Well, when I thought about it, he basically pointed out a lot of the falsehoods and dysfunctions in her life that she did not want to face. See, that's what it is. She didn't want to face it. She thought about her life and her timeline, about the different relationships and situationships and why she's in the state that she's in now. So of course, and there was several women who said, I'm so glad, and on the internet, I'm so glad he's dead. Because you don't have to hear him speak and remind you of the garbage that you didn't take out. And this is why you have stench in your house. When you don't take out the garbage, it's gonna stink and it's gonna get worse. So when you don't take out the garbage emotionally, mentally, spiritually, it's gonna be a stench that you can put on a wig, makeup, eyelashes, heavy makeup, and put on a sexy skirt, long fingernails, and perfume on, but you stink. You'll fool somebody and maybe a lot of people to lay down with you, but after a while, wait a second, this woman's all messed up, or this man's all messed up. That's what it is. You're not responsible for fixing everyone. Trust and believe. I ain't fixing nobody right now. I'll give you advice. If you're in my inner circle, I'll give everything. But these people who just pop up in your life for a reason, just to dump on you, dump trash, they don't want to dispose of the trash properly. They don't want to take it to the proper city dump of therapy, the proper city dump of meditation. No, they want to come on your beautiful property with your manicured lawns and everything is nice and dump their stuff on you. No, take it somewhere else. And if I catch you doing that, I'm going to dump it right back in your yard. You come back again, I'm playing target practice. Next, breaking the cycle may be your greatest legacy. The most powerful inheritance isn't wealth. It's emotional health. When you refuse to repeat manipulation, emotional neglect, and unhealthy communication, you're changing the future in ways that can't always be measured immediately. Your courage becomes the turning point that future generations may benefit from without ever realizing the battles you fought. That's why healing is bigger than one individual. Every healthy decision creates ripples that extend far beyond your own lifetime. The cycle doesn't end because someone talks about change. It ends because someone consistently chooses a different path. And that's so true. You heal yourself. You stop the overflow of dysfunction into future generations because they won't know anything about it. And when you correct how you deal with the subsequent generations and they see how you move, they may not know what came before, but they know the refreshed, clean slate that you have now, and that's your responsibility. So it's not just a matter of cleaning yourself up, because if you don't deal with yourself, your mannerisms, your rhythms, it's going to spill over into the next generation. Even if you bottle it up, they'll be able to smell the stench. And again, I'm not personally saying anybody like in this state of toxicity is stinking, but toxicity doesn't smell good. I never heard of a cologne or perfume. Oh, go down to the mall, to the perfume stand and buy Toxicity, the new fragrance. If that's the case, so many of us have it, we wouldn't have to go buy it. The next point that I want to make is, on the conclusion, is that your peace is the greatest testimony of all. There comes a point where your life speaks louder than your words ever could. You no longer need to convince people you've changed because your peace becomes visible. Your confidence becomes steady. Your reactions become measured. Your joy no longer depends on the opinions of those who once controlled your emotions. That's the greatest victory. It's not proving anyone wrong. It's becoming so emotionally free that the very things designed to destroy you no longer have authority over your life. The greatest testimony isn't revenge, it's living well, loving wisely, and refusing to let yesterday's wounds dictate tomorrow's possibilities. And understand that healing is a lifetime journey, a lifetime endeavor, and a lifetime undertaking. And we have to also know that once we're healed, we have to maintain that because we can be triggered. And that's something that most people don't even talk about. We can be triggered back into the old way of seeing things because of what we grew up in and what was around us. We have to do maintenance. We have to continue the journey. It may not be as much of an effort as when we first started and got ourselves healed, but we have to, just like when you tithe your offerings at the church, you got to take a little time to make sure that you're not slipping into any bad mental or reactionary habits, that you're keeping it fresh and anew. Just because you cut the grass last week doesn't mean that you're going to go on a vacation for a whole month and expect to see it in the same state of being cut to your satisfaction. When you come back, you have to expect there's maintenance to do. There's maintenance to do with our bodies, maintenance to do mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. Like I said, you must have your own space in your world, in your day, in your life, a hobby or an undertaking that brings you joy, that validates you, something that belongs to no one else. And anybody in a relationship with you definitely wants you to have this, because when you come back to them, not that you left them, you might be in another room practicing on a guitar because you love that, or attempting a new creative endeavor that challenges you and takes you out of your comfort zone, which helps you to grow. We all need those. We all need that space. So that way, our relationships don't become toxic because we're smothering each other. Because oftentimes, and I'll leave on this, oftentimes many of us who are in relationships, we're seeking some refuge from the other person that we're dealing with. We're looking for them to heal us, for them to be a comfort zone. And they can be a comfort, but you have to stand on your own 2 feet when you do your healing. That's the only way, because nobody wants to embrace a person who's not healed. You may not be perfect, but at least have most of your healing done. Do you invite people over to your house when the place is trashed? No, you cleaned it up so you can receive them, and they'll appreciate coming over, and you'll feel proud of what you have to offer. I can go on about this topic forever, and I will be back again to speak on it from a different angle. But I hope you enjoyed everything that I shared. I spoke from the heart, experience, things I've seen, and things that have affected me directly. And I open my heart to speak about them. So if there's any topics that you want to speak about along these levels of human nature, I'm always open to talk about it because it's a joy. Because even when I talk about a dysfunctional situation, it still helps me to heal or pre-heal from any situation that may want to come to me. You see what I mean? I'll be made aware of it. If I never dealt with it before, I'm like, oh, I never had to deal with this before. But you know what? Thank you for hipping me and informing me on this, so I'm ready. You can never be too armed because you have to protect your peace by any means necessary. And I feel that I'm there at this point in my life, and I'm so happy to be here. Nothing can touch me now. Much love to you all. LanceScurv out. On to the next one. And as always, I wish you nothing but peace.